Anyone else out there like constantly finding themselves wanting to get more and more things for their vans, right? Like different modifications, whether it's new wheels, tires, bigger lights, brighter lights, different ladders. Yeah, guilty right here. Like everyone else, when I was looking at a van and kind of trying to imagine what it could be, I remember browsing Instagram and just like making a list, right? Like I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. And going to my builder and saying, all right, cool, here's my list. I want this, 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 and this. And a week later, I got an estimate. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, you know what? Actually, don't want this, don't want this, don't want this, and don't want this. So I want to do a quick video about what it is that we actually landed on and how we outfitted our van. Okay, so let's talk wheels. That's probably the first place that people go to improve the look of their Sprinter. That was really what we wanted to do first as well. We got rid of those stock wheels and tires, and we decided to go with the Black Rhino Arsenals with the BFG KO2s. It's a combo that you see everywhere, and there's a reason why. It looks really, really, really good. The wheels almost have like a military look to them. They look super tough. You pair them with the BFG KO2s, and they just look great. So we went with the 17-inch wheels. The tires were 275, 70, 17s, and they look good. I think if I could go back in time, I'd probably figure out a way to get 35s on the van. Now that it's all said and done, it's built up, it's tall, it looks great. I think the wheels look a little bit too small. The 275, 70, 17 size is just a hair too small. It almost looks like the van like skipped leg day or something like that. And I understand there are a lot of mods that go along with that. You're gonna start cutting things, you're gonna start lifting the van just to fit those 35s on, but just strictly from an aesthetics perspective, I think that's the absolute right size for these vans. Let's talk about flares, and I wanna do a whole video on these later, and I'm sure there are some people that are on the fence about these things, but I think they're awesome. For us, it was always a must on our list. We've got 2 little kids. We needed to sleep 4 in a 144, and flares were really the best way to do that. From a looks perspective, I think they look great. This boring side of the van now looks much better. It pops out. We have those like 10 by 33 slider windows on there, and they just look fantastic. So flares for us were a must-have accessory. So then you get into side steps, and at first I didn't think that we needed those. I actually liked the look, kind of like the higher ground clearance. And then as soon as we put the bigger tires on there, I noticed my wife, who was like 5'5", was like doing lunges to get in and out of the van. And then you add a 3 and a 5-year-old who are literally climbing in and out of the van and almost need a step stool. And the side steps just made sense. I know some people call them Nerf bars. I don't think they're gonna protect you against rocks or anything like that. But they're super, super functional. And I think they're an absolute must, especially if you have little kids. Side steps are a must. Then you come to the roof rack, and the roof rack was something that was not on our original build sheet. And it wasn't until about halfway through that we decided, maybe it would be cool to have a roof rack. And then I started getting like lost in this vision of how cool it would be to stargaze with my kids on top of the van, or sleep up there, or just have another space to hang out and watch a sunset. Now that we've had the van for a few months, I think the roof rack is an absolute must. Is it pricey? Yes. Is it totally functional? Maybe not. But I think if you are going to utilize it, whether it be for storage, hauling bikes, hauling extra stuff, I think it's a totally worthwhile space. And when you have a 144, you realize there's not a lot of space. So if you can hop out of the van, climb up a ladder and get on top, I think it's a total win. I think the roof rack is a must. If you've got a roof rack, you have to figure out how to get on top of the roof. And so then you start looking at ladder options. And like everything else in the van world, you realize there's a whole menu of options with pros and cons to each different setup. My initial thought was that I wanted the Owl Vans ladder tire carrier. I really like the look of it. I think it looks super sharp. I like that it's in the back of the van. It's tucked away from everything. There's no drag. It's not gonna snag on anything in the side of the van. But I really went back and forth. I had texted friends asking for their opinions on which one they thought looked better, which one they thought might be more functional. And ultimately we landed on the Owl Vans ladder tire carrier and couldn't be happier. I think it was the absolute right decision. It's really well built. The way to get on top of the roof with kind of 2 steps and then stepping on the tire and then up to the rest of the steps and on top of the van, it works great. Kids are able to climb up. and I like that everything's back and out of the way. The issue that I had with having a side ladder is that then I needed a place to store a spare tire. And if you've bought any tires larger than the stock Sprinter tires, you realize that the carriage that holds the spare tire underneath the back of the van doesn't fit those tires. So you have to get a tire carrier anyways. So to have the ladder and tire carrier combo, it was just a win-win, and I think it's a must. Then you get into lights, and we have two different types of lights. Lights that are a little bit more practical, and lights that are only used really when you're on like a dirt road or in the middle of nowhere. And the latter are the 6 KC highlights that we have on the top of the van that go with the roof rack. They look phenomenal. I think they're fantastic. They're incredibly bright. When you flip those things on, it's basically like daylight. If you are a car coming at the van and those things are on, pretty sure you think you're gonna get abducted. They are that bright. Now, we were driving through Alabama hills about a month ago at night, and they looked great. I mean, you could see every ripple and every washboard in the road. Are we using those every day? No, we're really not, but they look fantastic, and I think they complete the look of the van. Then you get into kind of more practical lights, and those are what we have on the front on a tiny little bolt-on bumper, and those are the Baja Design Squadron lights. We have 2 clears and 2 ambers, and they're fantastic lights. The bummer about these new Sprinters, especially if you didn't go for the LED lights and you're stuck with the halogens like I am, is those lights are terrible. I mean, I'm a little bit offended that Mercedes on a $60,000 van put halogen lights on there that really don't work well. So those Baja Design Squadrons work really, really well to compensate for that light that you're missing from your headlights. Now, is it something that we're using every day? Is it something that we're using when we're driving on the freeway? No, it's not. But when you're out and about, or we were driving through snow last month in the Eastern Sierras, and things got cloudy and visibility got down to pretty much nothing, we flipped on those amber lights and we were able to see pretty well. So I think those lights are very practical. Highly recommend them. The last accessory I want to talk about is probably the most important out of anything on this list, and that is the Van Compass suspension system. Now, we are basically building out in stages the 4.3 system, but we ordered rear shocks, leaf springs, and the Sumo springs first. We're just waiting for the front shocks to come in from Van Compass. I can tell you, out of all the things that I've mentioned so far, hands down, that is the first thing that I would do. It totally changes the ride of the van. It handles the weight much better. And if you've ever driven one of these things in crosswinds or on rough roads, you realize they bounce around and rock around and sway quite a bit. And the Van Compass SP 3.3s, I believe they're called, they're just fantastic shocks. You add the Sumo springs, the bump stops in the front, and they are great. So that would be my number one recommendation when it comes to accessories, would be that Van Compass Stage 4.3 kit, or whatever kit makes sense for how you're driving and how you're using the van. So those are my thoughts on exterior accessories. And I went through what felt like a pretty arduous process of decision making each time I added something to the van. So hopefully this has been helpful. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Feel free to give it a like, and if you'd like to, subscribe to the channel. In future videos, we're going to talk about the interior. We're going to talk about things I wish I had known before I bought the van, or things I wish I had known before I started the build out of the van, and all kinds of other topics. All right, thanks for watching.